Welcome to No More Carbon Copies. It's the podcast for high-performing leaders with big goals who feel stuck trying to reach the next level. At Vivera Leadership, we believe no two leaders are the same. The best leaders perform at their highest when they understand what makes them unique and stop trying to lead like someone else. This is where we explore how to see ourselves clearly, address self-sabotage, and lead with clarity, confidence, and purpose. You don't need to be a copy, you just need to be you. Welcome to No More Carbon Copies.
Welcome to the No More Carbon Copies podcast. I've got the privilege of having Don Viar on the podcast today. I've learned so much from Don just in the short time I've known him. He leads a amazing company that helps a lot of businesses with their technology needs. Introduce yourself just a little bit so people understand the scope of your expertise.
My name's Don Viar, and I've been in the IT field for a little over 35 years, have a background in public accounting. Before that was a CPA, but for the last 25 years, I've owned a business called EpiOn, where we're an outsourced managed IT service provider working with small and medium-sized businesses all across North America. On a personal note, I would add husband to Ashley, married 35 years, father to 3 amazing daughters, 2 of which are married, and a granddad to for about 90 days now to the most amazing grandbaby you could possibly imagine.
That kid is going to be so spoiled.
Absolutely.
Well, good. Well, hey, Don, AI, huge topic in our world. Can't have any conversation without someone mentioning AI in some form or fashion. We've experienced technology shifts over the years. This AI technology shift seems bigger. What is unique about this?
I think most technology shifts have affected how we work. Artificial intelligence is beginning to affect how we think and make decisions. And it's fundamentally different from other types of disruption because it's not just a new tool, it's a new operating environment. And leaders that are thriving are not going to be the ones that just figure out how to deploy the technology first, but the ones that take the time to build the right culture, the right environment organizationally, the right infrastructure, be able to adopt this technology safely and securely, both now and in the future for what's to come.
It's a super interesting conversation because it deals so much with not just what the technology is, but variations in terms of people's enthusiasm, fear, lack of expertise. It's not just like plugging in a new piece of hardware or a new piece of software. It's a dramatic shift and for many folks, so intimidating.
Yeah. Organizations are adopting AI in some capacity, but most of them really aren't ready. They don't realize the power that they have within their hand. And because of that, they're bringing risk into the organization without necessarily a lot of return on the investment right now. But there is a way to get there. Just this week alone, I've met with a dental practice that was very antagonistic to AI. This morning, I met with a financial advisory firm that was very proactive AI. It's all over the spectrum right now.
What do you think is the most common mistake that leaders make when they're trying to introduce AI?
Yeah, I think fundamentally people are approaching it as if it was just a technology conversation. And reality, it's a people conversation first and foremost. As leaders, we're guilty of coming in with whatever the new shiny toy and object is, and in this case, it's AI, and we tell everybody we're going to adopt it, but we may not be really addressing some of the underlying concerns that are going on within the organization. Andy Stanley is a preacher out of Atlanta, and he said the most ineffective way of beginning the conversation about change is by talking about what needs to change. You really sort of have to earn the right to talk about change after you clearly demonstrate that you understand the problems that they may be feeling about this technology. The question that fundamentally is in the back of a lot of people's mind when they think about artificial intelligence is, am I going to be replaced?
Yeah.
Is my job safe? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You keep thinking, what is going to make me obsolete? What's going to make my skill set obsolete? What's going to hurt my chances of feeding my family or doing what I love to do? Have you seen examples of leaders casting vision in a way that is effective? Because what I hear you saying is, hey, before you start introducing AI, take a step back and talk about what your vision is and what your strategy is and get people comfortable with it. I think some leaders might feel like, do I have time to do that? or am I going to lose ground if I take that tact?
When it's done effectively, people see that AI is going to be a productivity enhancer. We work a lot in the legal sector, and there's a common refrain among attorneys that it's not that AI is going to replace the attorney, but attorneys that use AI will replace attorneys. AI is an opportunity to be a productivity multiplier. It changes the economics of the businesses that it enters. And there's a way to create competitive advantage in the marketplace around AI right now. But if you dig your heels in and are resistant to it and slow to adopt, then there's threat. I know of a situation where an individual was a high paid data analyst for their organization. They brought AI in, and it was his job to train AI, supposedly to be a coworker. And about the time he got it fully trained, they said, "Thank you, but we no longer need your services." And AI took his job. And so there is some of that now. And I think as leaders, we've got to acknowledge those situations, and we've got to be open and candid about what's going on. But there's also some business realities to this. I was at a conference for my industry about a month ago, and one of the gurus for our industry stood up and said, AI will create a 30 to 40% efficiency gain in our cost of doing business over the next 4 years. And the market is going to expect that savings to be passed through to them. And so another way to say that is we could see 30 to 40% price deflation if we just keep doing the same thing the way we've always done it. But if we'll evolve what we do, for instance, helping businesses safely adopt this AI technology creates all sorts of new opportunities for our business, things that we weren't doing before. We can replace the existing revenue with good revenue as we help people make that transition. But casting vision is about helping people understand the context of where we are today, the challenges, the threats, the opportunities, and how we as an organization are going to take advantage.
So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because you could have taken this as a let's defend our territory kind of thing, but your posture towards this has been very much let's get ahead of it. Let's see how can we help people with this. Like, just talk a little about your framework and what you use when you're having conversations with business leaders.
So we've created what we call a readiness framework to help businesses think through and really assess where are we today, where do we have gaps, and what do we need to be doing to prepare for what's to come. And I tell people that with respect to artificial intelligence, we're still in the top of the first inning. Like we're at the tip of the iceberg as to what's to come. I met with a leader this morning, and he was a little paralyzed about where to even start. It just feels so gargantuan when I think about the totality of everything that is AI today. Really, the place to start is with the fundamentals. And when I say fundamentals, what our readiness framework does is walk you through the 7 foundations of things that need to be addressed, starting with what we call policy or governance. Like, have you clearly told your organization what acceptable platforms they can use, what type of data they can upload into those platforms? Just giving them clear leadership about guidance about those decisions. And then have you enforced that policy by blocking all other platforms? So governance, IT security is the second facet. That security has never mattered more. When you plug AI into your environment, it will, not in a malicious way, but it will try to take advantage of every resource that it can access. We saw that about a year ago in our own environment. We plugged AI into our network, thought we had contained it, and came in the next morning and it was crawling across parts of our network that we didn't give it access to explicitly. But it found a loophole and it was seeing what it could see. But security, and then the next part of the framework is all about your data, having good data quality, good data governance. So if I'm training AI on our company data, is it being trained on good information? Is it something it consider as a source of truth? A lot of organizations have like 10 or 12 copies of the same document floating around, different versions. What is AI supposed to consider truth when it gives you an answer? And then the last part of the framework is all about things we've talked about for 20 years. It's your people, your process, and your technology. What are we doing right now to train our people to see AI as a coworker, as a collaborator? There's a skill, there's an art to learning how to do what's called prompt engineering. So working in conjunction with AI to get the result that we're trying to get. On the process side of things, do we have well-documented business processes with clear information about the outcome that we're trying to achieve. Long term, I'll be able to upload that type of documentation into AI and say, okay, this is the outcome I'm trying to achieve. Here's the process, go do it. And the last thing is technology. A lot of businesses have what we call technical debt. They have
Yeah.
old legacy software, old hardware, and both of those things will be an impediment to their ability to adopt artificial intelligence. The other way I would say this, Roger, is I liken it to college. Freshman year, you take a bunch of 101 classes, and then sophomore year is 201, junior 301, 401, senior. Most businesses might be using AI in some capacity, but they're really not AI ready. And there's some 101 things that we need to be doing right now to help them be ready. Really, what we're doing is we're all preparing for artificial general intelligence. That might get here in 6 months, it might get here in 6 years. I think experts tend to think it's going to be sometime in the next 2 or 3 years. But and I can go into more detail about what is AGI in just a second. But we're preparing now because AI is about to become a whole lot more capable, more powerful, and we need to be ready to feed it so that we can take maximum advantage of it.
Working with a lot of entrepreneurs or folks who are working in smaller organizations, they want to figure out what is the AI that's the best performing right now? What should I be adopting? What tools should I be using? Sometimes AI, I feel like causes me to do more work, but is supposed to help me do less work. So those kind of questions, which seem to be very, I would say, downstream from what you're trying to do. You're trying to go upstream with organizations and get some foundations in place. So what would you say to someone who's saying, I really need to know those kind of immediate questions, which is they're kind of trying to hit the gas pedal a little bit on it?
Yeah. So the firm I met with this morning, they were exactly in that crossroad. They were pressing to say, what tools should we be implementing? And there is good reason to be picking a tool and implementing or multiple tools. The landscape is constantly changing. So I could throw out a few names here and I will, but this could be outdated in 6 weeks in terms of the back and forth race between these providers. But right now, today in the early June timeframe when this podcast will be released, we think Anthropic Claude is a really solid platform. It's a lot of innovation happening within their technology. But the group I met with earlier today, governance really mattered. Like they needed to be able to keep a log of all of the prompts that people were entering into AI. They needed to be able to track the flow of sensitive information into the AI platform and know how people are using it. And so right now, Microsoft Copilot has a lead in that governance side of things, but Copilot isn't as innovative with some of the collaboration tools as Claude. So there's pros and cons to these tools. And what we're encouraging is that leaders need to get a tool into the hands of their people. They need to give their people some training on how to do these prompt engineering sorts of things. So maybe there's one tool that you push broadly across the organization. And then for a small subset of your people, you give them access to lots of tools. And they become sort of the skunk works team that are really driving innovation inside the organization. But really, that's sort of a cart in front of the horse conversation if we haven't gotten the security, the governance, the data quality, some of those other foundational things squared away up front. If you just jump into tools, you're really introducing a lot of risk and change into the organization that might not produce the result that you want.
Let's jump back to like the leadership challenge around
Sure.
communication. If you're talking with leaders about communication, how should they be communicating about AI to make sure the people in their organization understand where they're going? What do you recommend?
There's a book out there called Switch, written by Chip and Dan Heath, a couple of brothers. They talk about any type of change that you're leading inside the organization, that ambiguity is the enemy. If you really want people to embrace change and adopt change, then you've got to provide crystal clear direction. Vague statements like, "Hey, we're going to adopt this AI tool," don't really move anyone forward. But if you were to give them specific behavioral direction to say, "Hey, this month, every team leader is going to pick an AI tool or an AI platform, and you're going to use it as part of your daily workflow. And at the end of the month, we're going to sit down and share lessons learned and best practices." But now we've given people not only vision, but we've given them some concrete tasks that they can go walk away with and build confidence. This is incredibly important with AI. AI is moving so quickly. It's moving exponentially in terms of the development curve right now. That's stressful because it feels like things are constantly changing. What I thought was best practice a month ago might be out of date now. Ken Blanchard talks about when you're introducing change to the organization, people can take change, but they can't take unlimited change at an unlimited pace. And so we need to be thoughtful about how we are sequencing and introducing change into the organization so that they're able to keep pace between vision and the tools that we're giving them to make meaningful adoption.
Let's talk a little bit about fear, the reaction, the stiff arm to resist, and maybe even kind of sabotage some progress or some adoption because of that fear. What would you say to leaders about how to address fear?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's about communication. We are clearly communicating the opportunity that we see for them personally and professionally, for us as an organization. There's a passage in First John that talks about how perfect love casts out fear. I think to some degree, more knowledge here, better understanding of the technology helps cast out that fear. And what shows up as resistance or cynicism about AI, or maybe even look like laziness, in some cases, it's just exhaustion. People are worn down by the constant pace of uncertainty and change around this technology. And I think it's our job as leaders to sort of help lighten that load and to cut through this. We can't communicate enough about it. I'm talking about it in every company meeting. We're hosting events where we're helping others understand and talk about this. We're writing articles, we're doing blogs, we're doing so much in terms of trying to educate people about AI. And Roger, an hour ago, one of my people calls and says, "Hey, I saw that you said this new software that is coming out, it has a soul and it has a heartbeat. And I'm really worried about the theological impacts of that." And this was an hour ago inside my own organization. That gave them a lot of pause about what does this technology mean? It's like any other part of our vision. It's our job as leaders and as CEOs to over communicate that. And we really can't communicate enough about what it means, the opportunity, and where we think it's going to help our people continue to feel reassured and to navigate through this period of transition.
Yeah, I was talking with an executive this morning about the word love. We don't typically use that in the workplace, but we were talking about how we absolutely need to think through leadership and communication through the lens of what would I do if I loved the people I worked with, and which means I would be clear, which means I would be honest, I would be vulnerable, and in some ways, we introduce or try to adopt AI, we don't know exactly where it's going to take us. And so there's a reassurance, but there's also an inability to reassure in some ways. And so I feel like there's a communication honesty that needs to happen. Most leaders don't know how to communicate. And so they're like, this is something we have to do, but not necessarily dealing with what you said, which is the human element of fear, uncertainty. What you talked about in terms of the communication underneath it that supports it is really, really important, especially as you're managing the amount of fear that folks have related to how it's going to affect their work.
Well, yeah, as we're thinking about how to cast vision around some of this, I think it's important that you embrace and comprehend the things that aren't going to change. In most situations, your core values are not going to change for the organization. Your mission is not going to change. Your caring for your people is not going to change. The processes that we do and how we go about getting to the end result, that might change. That will change in almost every business. That's just sort of the reality. But if we are working together to figure that out, worst case, like if you're working in a call center and there comes a day that AI replaces your job, if you've been part of helping AI get to that point, you're going to have some marketable skills that will help you in other facets of whatever is to come. But I think we just have to be clear and honest up front to say, hey, our mission is, taking great care of people or providing XYZ value. And that's not going to change. And because that's our foundation, we can embrace this technology and figure out how it helps us accomplish that mission better and faster.
I really love that because in a world of uncertainty, you're trying to find the foundation of certainty. And so going back to the foundation of what's not going to change, what's our philosophy of leadership? What's our philosophy of people? What's our philosophy of growth in the eventuality that these things happen? How are we going to deal with that? And having some clear communication about it so people know exactly what they can count on. That's a very good word. And to the extent that leaders can get very clear and take the time to be clear about those things, it seems like that's an honest way of dealing with the uncertainty of the future. That's really good.
Absolutely.
So I've heard everything from people using AI to write emails to automating data entry into CRMs. How do you prioritize what you should use it with, and how to take baby steps in an organization?
Yeah, and so this is a analogy that I've really just developed last week as a way to begin to put a framework to this. But going back to that 101, 201, 301 sort of concept for a second. 101 use of AI would be the chat bots, the Chat GPT, Claude, Grok sorts of tools that we've all come to use. And maybe at first your use case is really you're using it as a glorified version of Google to search and learn information. And then in time, you'll begin to realize it can draft content for you. It can review documents. It can begin to do some of those things, but those are all sort of 101 things. And this is where the concept of prompt engineering is important, that I learn how to have a conversation and collaborate with AI to get the output that I'm trying to achieve. And the better I can structure my query, the better of the result that I'll get. But that's sort of that 101 foundation. And it's an important skill set that everybody needs to be developing right now. 201 use of this technology, some of the platforms like Claude and soon Microsoft Copilot have come up with basically what they call the co-work functionality, where the AI, you can give it a task and say on some sort of scheduled basis, I want you to go out and execute this task. It might be that it goes and logs into a website and scrapes down a report, analyzes the report, and then gives you a consolidated summary. Or it might be that you've integrated it into your ERP system, and it's able to go pull data out of the ERP system and compile something. As a coworker, it's functioning as an extension of you with your permissions, and that's a very reasonable, accessible use case for most people right now. When we start talking about 301 or 401 or even 601 sorts of things, everything we have today, Roger, and I should have said this earlier, but everything we have today is still in this era of agentic AI. We're still in what's called artificial narrow intelligence, stage one of AI. And agentic AI means, again, it can do certain repetitive things on your behalf. But where we're headed is into artificial general intelligence. And with artificial general intelligence, my relationship with the technology will change completely. Today, you
Another huge change.
yeah, I mean, a cataclysmic change. That a cataclysmic may not be the right word, but a foundational, fundamental change that's coming. So today, with agentic AI, that co-work thing I was just talking about, the 201 stuff, it functions as an extension of you. When we get to AGI, we will provision this technology as if it were a person, and so it will have a name. I'll be able to have a natural language conversation with it, just like we are right now. And we've actually had some early forerunners of this technology. There was something called OpenClaw that came out about 90 days ago, and this is why the person was calling me an hour ago, because in OpenClaw, one of the very first things you do is you create a soul for the bot. You create a heartbeat. You give it a job description. You give it skills. It has its own dedicated computer that it's running on my desk. We named her Pam. She has her own Microsoft 365 email account. We provisioned her if she is a person. I'm not recommending to the audience that they go and install OpenClaw. It's very risky technology, but it was an early foretaste of what's coming. And she would work brilliantly for about 18 hours, and then she would forget her name and why she was here. But but
That's
but
right.
but as we get to AGI, we will begin to delegate tasks, and we'll take that written process documentation that I was talking about earlier, and we'll just say, hey, here's the outcome I'm trying to achieve. Go figure it out and get it done. And it'll go away and learn. It'll self-learn, it'll self-improve, it'll do the task and bring you back the result, and maybe a better result than what you had asked it to generate. And so that's going to be level 501 or 601 when we get there. And again, that might be 6 months or 2 years or 6 years away. We don't really know, but we know it's coming. And so what we're preaching right now is that everything we do today, if we do it right, we'll be able to migrate into that future world. We're laying the foundation now that allows us to go faster later. But it's important that we are crawling and walking before we try to sprint, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you just went through kind of a master's level, like this is future in terms of where we're going. Do you think, I'm going to go back to your 30% efficiency in your business. A lot of people, when they hear that, they think, oh no, that's 30% cost reduction. We're going to have to find cost reduction somewhere. For someone like me who sees it as, no, that's 30% efficiency in terms of our ability to grow. We're gonna be able to do way more with less. How do you balance out that communication as you're talking with folks?
Well, I mean, and it's going to be different sort of industry to industry. There are some industries that will be able to take that efficiency and without cutting headcount, it will enable them to grow and produce a higher quality output than what they were doing historically, and maybe pick up margin to the bottom line. Other organizations, because of their industry, it's going to become table stakes that if I'm not doing this, I won't be price competitive with my market because others will price that savings into what they're doing. And so it does differ market to market right now. But what we see today is that there is the opportunity for it to create a competitive advantage today. So a good case in point, Roger, is we recently did a security audit for a large law firm. And we go in and do tons of analysis, produce hundreds of pages of data and reports. We sat down and we drafted the initial findings, the audit report for the customer. Spent an hour or two developing this report. And then we took that report plus all of the raw data, we fed it into AI. And in about 30 minutes, it gave us back a document that was, it would have taken us a week to produce a similar document. And honestly, we might not have produced as good of a document at the end of the day. But we didn't just take the output of that system and say, well, here's the answer. We then collaborated with it. We said, well, you did well here, but this could be improved. And it became an extension, but it allowed us to produce a much better result and faster than what we would have just done on our own. There's competitive advantage in that for the organizations that figure that out and how to do that at scale today.
Yeah, that makes me think. Like, I have experience and talked with other folks about overusing AI in terms of delegating all thinking to AI, which there's obviously some limitations of expertise and what you bring to the table and how that affects how you think about your product. The other thing is the limitations of AI that talk about hallucinations or talk about like AI not necessarily getting it right all the time. So there is some complexity that you have to think through, which brings me to kind of more of a question of humility. How do you think about the humility of the fact that we think we might know something and then we might be wrong, and then we have to exist in a try and learn and test and get it wrong and make mistakes kind of world.
Yeah.
Which is uncomfortable. How do you deal with that?
I think Jim Collins in Good to Great sort of captured it perfectly when he says, great leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the humility to ask the best possible questions. And so if there's anything today that I've said that makes it or implies that I have all the answers, let me just set that aside right now. But it is important that we approach this with a posture of curiosity and humility, because yeah, I think as leaders, nobody has a crystal ball and can say this is where it's all going to wind up. And I don't think our people are expecting that we do that. But our people do want to know, they're hearing enough buzz around AI in the ether that they want to know that we're paying attention to it, that we're taking it seriously, that we have a process for making decisions about how AI is going to impact our organization. And that again sort of goes right back to that readiness framework that I've talked about. But because I think humility plus some sort of rigor engenders trust among our team. And that's, I think, the essence of it today.
That's good. The leadership responsibility on a technologist in this environment is huge. IT leaders, their role now changes a little bit from just kind of supplying the hardware and the software and the black boxes to make sure you're secure, all that kind of stuff. Now they're really talking about work optimization. They're helping people adopt technology and getting through the fear, resistance, or the myths of, the AI is going to take over.
Well, it's process engineering, process optimization. And I was telling my team the other day, we have a lot of people that are really good at fixing technical problems. You call us and your printer's not working, or you got a networking issue, we can sort it out in a few seconds and get you back up and running. But that the person who's good at doing that is not the same skill set of the person that needs to say, talk to me about your patient intake process and how do you go about validating insurance before you see the patient. And there's a workflow there, and maybe that workflow needs to be optimized in light of AI. And so we're being intentional. We're just now starting this conversation, but we're being intentional about recognizing the skills that our team's going to need in the future to be successful in that type of environment, and starting the training and providing them resources to be able to hopefully make that transition within their career. But eventually, there's going to be some sort of AI agent that fixes most of your IT problems. It'll probably sit in your toolbar or your task manager, and you'll click it and say, "Hey, here's my problem," and AI will go fix it behind the scenes. So adaptability is absolutely important.
Yeah, I've heard some interesting comments from folks I know who are experts in technology, and their approach has been, it doesn't take away my job. It allows me to do a lot more and to do the stuff that I love doing, which is the creative problem solving, those kind of things. Once I figure out I can offload a lot of work to AI, but I still get to do the creative part. I still get to do a lot of the dreaming, the visioning of how to use it, and really putting AI in its right place, which is it's a tool.
Right.
And like every tool, it has to be used appropriately. And there's a cost to avoiding that tool or to not using that tool. And so you're talking to someone who's a little bit more on the skeptical side, or on the, hey, I'm going to let other people make the mistakes. They'll pay for the mistakes, and I'll get the final
Sure.
product.
Yeah.
I'll let them be the test dummies. How do you talk about the strategic decision leaders need to think through in terms of how far they press into AI versus, do they want to be a early adopter, or they want to be a mid-level adopter or late
Yeah.
adopter? What
Yeah.
is what
So
do you think about that?
I hear it a lot that, maybe we need to take a wait and see approach. Maybe it's too early for us to get into this. I met with a large regional bank a few weeks ago, and they were insistently and pushing and saying, like, where's the ROI at? What's the real benefit return on investment? And the honest truth is it's tough to measure some of those things right now. But I do know the wait and see approach is, in many cases, your competitors are not taking the wait and see approach. They're wrapping their fingers around the technology now and wrestling with it, and learning the lessons and laying that foundation that I've talked about. So here's a good example, Roger, of moving prudently now, allowing you to go faster later. About 3 years ago, we developed a whole set of logic around how we manage a Microsoft 365 environment for our customers. There are hundreds of settings and things that could be automated in a Microsoft 365 tenant. And we spent months developing all of this business logic and all of the script automation to make it flow. And we did that inside of one of the tools that we use, one of our platforms. Well, about a month ago, my team took all of that logic, all of that automation, and we pulled it out of the third party platform. We dropped it into our own custom AI platform, and we had a custom piece of software in about 12 hours that was better than what we had before. But all of that logic, all of that foundation allowed us to move quickly into what was coming. And that's really sort of what I'm preaching right now, that if you take a wait and see approach, you're going to find yourself trying to play catch up on an exponential growth curve. This
Yeah.
technology is moving exponentially. What does that even mean, exponential growth curve? The AI that we have in December of this year will be twice as powerful as the AI that we have today. The AI that we have 4 years from now will be 100 times more powerful than what we have right now. The chips, the data center, the agents themselves, the technology, it's all moving exponentially. I
Yeah.
lecture on this in our Lunch and Learn series. I'm lecturing on this about every month now. And every month when I sit down and I pull up the presentation that I delivered a month ago, it's staggering how much I have to update because of how fast things have changed.
Yeah.
Don't take a wait and see approach. You need to be getting ready, laying this foundation, because it will create a competitive advantage opposed to those that are waiting and seeing.
It's kind of like get on board, ride the wave, learn as you go. Don't get drowned by the wave later. So we're going to close the loop here talking about what the future looks like. What are practical things that people can do who are interested in moving forward with AI in their organizations? But I keep coming back to the idea of how change and resistance to change is very much about identity in terms of how we deal with who we are in the midst of a changing world and not being in a fixed position. I want to encourage people to think about is as they deal with their fear and deal with their concerns about the future. How do they think about who they are in the work world? Who are they as a person who delivers value for their organization? That has to be the first question that people ask. They can then understand, why am I scared about this? What is my posture towards change? What's my posture towards risk? And for leaders to encourage that so that people can be more open to the idea of change and learning and growing. Identity is huge in the leadership world as we talk to leaders about who they are and knowing what they do well and knowing how to find their sweet spot. AI is never going to replace a human. Humans are built for each other. And so I'd like to encourage people to think about that.
Absolutely. Well said.
So let's land the plane here. What's success look like? What's the future look like for a business that's successfully dealt with AI? And then very practically, if someone is not on the ship at all, they're way behind the curve, what's the practical thing that they need to do? Concrete next step.
To address the first part of that first, what does success look like in 24 months or 36 months or wherever that future state is? I think it would be that your team has confidence about their adoption of AI, that they realize that their clients are getting or better service or a better output as a result of artificial intelligence being part of the mix at some level. Because of AI, you'll be able to make better, faster decisions that will help lead the organization into the future. And I think maybe part of success will be that AI is not seen as some sort of special project, but has become ingrained into the culture as a coworker, a collaborator. Because that's really sort of the trajectory. When we have AI, working effectively, we have good data, we have good governance, we have good accountability, and we're generating better value for our business, for our shareholders, for our customers because of this technology. But if somebody's listening right now and like the firm I met with this morning, like they're just overwhelmed, they're paralyzed by all of the technology that they read and hear about, and like where do we even start? We've created a free resource that anybody can go to and access. It's you would get to it by aiassessmentreport.com. The tool there, you log into it for free. There's 21 questions that will walk a business leader through. Have you thought about these things? And at the end of that assessment process, take you 15 minutes, but you can click a button and it will produce a step-by-step action plan, a prioritized action plan that you can take back to your IT team and say, okay, here's what I want to work on, and how we go from a lack of confidence or a lack of preparedness to being AI ready. As much as anything, that's what gives us clarity. It gives us confidence. We've got some sort of next step, a concrete next step. I don't have to have the whole thing figured out, but I know that I'm taking steps that are not going to be just completely null and void.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm thinking about is to take the word curiosity and make it part of their daily activity. Be curious rather than defensive. Just be curious to ask the questions of what if and what should, and be engaging with your colleagues in a curious way. And what you just said about taking that assessment, getting clear on your current status, and really honestly assessing where you're at allows you to gain the confidence to say, here's the first step we need to take. And I love the fact that you're offering that tool for free. Don, it's been great. You offer a lot of wisdom, a great gift. Love how you can, be a really amazing guide for people. Really appreciate that approach to thinking about a really complex, challenging issue. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I tell my board all the time, there's never been a more exciting time to be a business leader. And to be in the IT field than right now. It's the opportunities that are in front of all of us. It's all greenfield in front of us. If we'll just embrace this opportunity, we can create value in ways that we never imagined before.
Yeah. And the thing I would say is, leaders, take that assessment. If your organization is experiencing fear on the people side of things, we can absolutely help you with that. There is a human side to this, like Don said, creating a culture that allows people to be open to maneuver and adjust. It may not look exactly like you thought it was going to look 2 years ago, a year from now, but how do you surf that wave to go forward? Don, thanks for joining the No More Carbon Copies podcast. I guarantee you that we will have another conversation about this. Thanks for joining, and very much appreciate it. And I wish you all the best as you continue to serve customers and offer this wisdom.
Thank you, Roger. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the next one.